Hello, everyone. Hello, Michael. I see you're there.
Yeah, so thanks again for inviting me. I will try to tell what will be here today. We will look into test automation in JavaScript, and basically I will make an overview of two popular tools, is Playwright and CodeceptJS, and explain how they can be paired together, what's the benefits of one tool, of what's the benefits of other tool, and probably this will give you some ideas how you can improve your current testing experience and make your test automation better. And we will see how to play right end-to-end testing. So a few things about me. If I try to describe who am I and what I'm working on, I'm a developer who works because of passion and not because of money. This passion brought me the two frameworks, testing frameworks that I created is CodeceptJS and Conception, which one is in PHP. And basically, this was because I wrote the code I wasn't really happy with, and I wanted to have this code tested, but the testing frameworks was also not very good. So I created testing frameworks to test my code, and then I devoted all my programming to testing. So uh, I'm from developer background, and I'm still learning um, from others about their background in QAs, because to be honest, our mindset as developers and as QA engineers, even QA automation engineers, is very, very different. And probably through these meetups and meeting other people, I would really love to learn more about how people do automate, what problems they see. And that's really helps me to improve my projects. And one of the things I discovered talking with people that it's only one part of a problem to make your tests automated. The next part of a problem is to know what should be automated, what should not, what tests we need in product, what manager thinks about their tests, what other developers thinks, what business thinks. And that brought me to ideas that test is not just about code, it's about communication, visibility, and currently I'm working on Testomatio product, which is a test management system for automated and manual tests. So basically any JavaScript test you already have can be imported into the system without executing the code itself. And you can take it and bring to your manager and show them that, hey, I have this test. Maybe you have idea how to improve it. Maybe you have idea what other tests we need. And that makes a test to be something more than a code in your application. So let's get back to the problem number one, end-to-end testing. And usually we mean here the browser testing. Sure, there are different other details, but if we go to this only direction about browser testing, there are always problems in common problems which people do face when they start browser test automation. So problem number one is how we set up browser. If you still use WebDriver, you probably already solved this problem. You probably or solve this problem at least like once a month, once at 2 months, if you need to install Chrome driver, Selenium, and other things. And even with in 2021, we still have problems installing browser and connecting them to testing framework and to make them work in pair. Um, Also, there's still a question, do I need Selenium? Because Selenium was a synonym to test automation for a long, long time. But nowadays, this monopoly seems to be not the case anymore. But still, you see business managers and other people, they still think that Selenium is the only option. If you propose them some other better technologies, they say, no, 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 we don't trust it. Let's keep off with Selenium. It's trusted. It is around 20 years with us. So stick to the things that work and don't play your silly toys. Um, so we still have this option, and sometimes we pick it by some rational ideas or some irrational. And browsers are slow, and they even technologically they became faster. The web interface is still slow. What can we do about it? How can we still speed up browsers? Anyway, these tests will still be slower than unit tests or integration tests. So problem of performance will still be with us, whatever we do in browsers. So browsers is problematic. So I think that's the biggest pain when we do end-to-end testing is getting around with browsers. But our web applications itself are very tricky, very heavy, and they are much more than a web page as the web started in 90s. Now it's full-fledged apps, and we need to test them. So interface of those apps are flaky. So sometimes button works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the modal window appears in 1 second. Sometimes it doesn't appear at all, or in another part of screen. So the biggest problem I see today is that there is no reliable application state. What do I mean here? That previously the web was very standardized by the idea of URL. If you change the state of application, you get the new URL of this application. So if you click on a link, you move to other page, and you know this because URL have changed. Nowadays, you can have modal windows, buttons, drawers, all other stuff in the application, and whatever you do, you don't really understand if something has changed application. So you don't really get and fully understandable feedback from application about if the action you did was actually the what that made application to change the state. So we can't rely on this state, and we need to figure out on our own what the state is. And there are still problem about locating elements on a page, sending commands to right elements, checking the right elements, and these issues persist, and probably they will still be there. No matter what browser we use, no matter what test automation frameworks we use, we still have all these problems, and they are common to all the languages we automate our tests on. So Playwright is a tool that tries to solve at least few of mentioned issues, or even if not to solve, but make our life better. So first of all, if Selenium is very good, proven, 20 years with us, manager says it's very good because he started maybe with the Selenium 20 years ago. But still, we need to move forward, and Playwright is modern Selenium alternative. It was built from the ground by Microsoft. And the idea is to give you full control of a browser. Previously, the same team has built Puppeteer, but for Google Chrome company, but for Google Chrome. Now they are working on Playwright, which, unlike Puppeteer, is fully cross-browser tool. So you have support of Chromium, WebKit, and Firefox. So all modern browser engines you can use in your tests. By WebKit, I mean Safari, actually. To be honest, before Playwright, I couldn't execute my tests in Safari because I didn't use Windows or Mac, and there was no Safari on Linux. But because it's a WebKit engine, which is the same as in Safari, the first time I saw Safari engine on Linux is with the help of Playwright. So as, unlike WebDriver, it supports headless mode from the box, so you can execute tests even without looking into browser windows. So if I remember what we have today with Playwright and what we have like 5 years ago with anything else, probably WebDriver, it's just heaven and earth. Not to say hell, but heaven and earth, and WebDriver is earth, and Playwright is heaven. So it provides out of the box everything we need to start testing. And probably the only limitations is that it works with Node.js and Python right now. I think I should have mentioned C#, but anyway, they expand the bindings of Playwright to other languages, but they started with TypeScript and Node.js. So if you're automating in Node.js, Playwright probably is a great choice for you. So it sounds like I'm selling Playwright. Maybe I'm working with the team, or as they pay me. But actually, no, they don't pay me. But I really like the things that they are doing, and I really like good engineering solutions, and I really like Playwright features. So let's say that how actually test automation performs. As you know, we have these dev tools in our browser, and you can easily toggle this tab and see how the web page is performed. And imagine that you can get access to all this information from your tests. You can get elements, you can get the network information, you can get information about performance, memory, everything that can provide us browser through DevTools can fetch Playwright and give you to write your tests. So it provides API control of DevTools. Unlike WebDriver, it also gives you a bidirectional control. What does it mean? That previously, if we go back in history about that web page had their state, that we sent request and web page has changed its state. As you know, nowadays, it's not how it happens. You send requests, web page changes something and doesn't respond you directly about these changes. And in WebDriver, we could only send comments to the browser and synchronously receive answers back. But if action takes some time or it requires some result in the end, it couldn't send us back. So if we could only call only online to line, but we never receive a calls. And in Playwright engine, it's quite different. So if we want to receive some information from browser, we can subscribe to it and receive informations like that network request has performed successfully, or page has finished rendering, or new element appeared, whatever. So you can wait for the information from a browser and not to poll this browser every time with the questions like, are we ready yet? Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready? That's basically how explicit and implicit ways in Selenium worked. And with Playwright, we can use bidirectional control to get information, are we ready? How does it technically work? So Playwright patches browsers. So it takes the browsers from source code. Luckily, today, all our browsers are open source. So the team create patches for these browsers and make the patched browser so it doesn't change anything in rendering, in processing. It only adds this control to a browser to make it work. So basically, I think patches are only required for Safari because Chrome is already patched well and enough to provide all APIs that Playwright needs. What I really like also is video recording. So unlike, again, WebDriver, where we need to add some tools to make video work. Playwright has it built in, and it's just you just turn it on, turn it off, and it works. Network modifications. So as I mentioned, we can mock requests, check for requests, and so on. We can emulate devices. In Playwright, for instance, we can check the mobile. It shouldn't be a surprise for you if you really know what DevTools is, and that you can have this mode to be toggled on and off. So you can emulate mobile devices to work on mobile device, and that's Playwright can also do for you. And to be honest, I can't list all features of Playwright because the team releases each Playwright version once a month, and every time you look into changelog, you see, wow, they added so much. So last good additions is reports, traces. Today discovered they have parallel execution with shards. So it's fully featured engine. So it's totally awesome. You may compare Playwright to Cypress because Cypress is also a modern tool. It's a very popular one. And even if Cypress is cool, fast, modern, and so on, you don't have all those features built into Cypress. So technically, Playwright is much more powerful from the idea how it is built, from the architecture, and from the feature cross-browser support. This is something you will never get in Cypress, but Playwright started from this ground. So everything looks absolutely awesome until you probably start looking into the code. I can say that this code is bad. Please understand me correctly, but I would say that this code is quite advanced, and this is because you are working with very advanced tool. But still, if you have experience with Selenium, if you have experience with Protractor, or whatever tools there on the market with Selenium architecture, you can probably understand this code quite easily and start writing your test automation scripts. So Playwright created their own engine to execute tests. So it's not Jest, it's not Mocha, it's built from the ground Playwright test. And you can use it to write your browser tests or do whatever browser scrapping, fast booking on flights, whatever you want to do, you can do from this interface. I looked at this code today, and it really reminded me the protractor. You know that protractor was deprecated. It won't be developed anymore. And if you have lots of protractor code, probably the Playwright API is something you will be absolutely comfortable with, because it have this expect to have syntax. We have modern awaits here, and yeah, very verbose and very cool API that it's very easy to write because we have auto-completion for all these methods. But still, I would say that this code quite complicated to me because I can directly read line by line to understand what happens here. Like I expect text gets started first to have attributed ref. Okay, I just got sleepy when I tried to read this line to the end. So this syntax is very verbose, at least to my feeling. But this is how we do test automation. Anyway, we have a very rich API because yeah, you have full control of your browser, and we have different objects in Playwright. One of them is browser itself, like opening browser, closing browser. Next, and this one is quite important because we didn't have this object in WebDriver. We don't have this in Puppeteer. We don't have this in Cypress. This is a context object. So let's say we have a browser, And we have a new incognito mode. Um, I think where's the okay, so I have two browser windows, and the question is this one browser or two browsers? How we think of it? And the Playwright team showed created a context abstraction. So each browser window of the same browser, I don't know how to explain it better, is a separate context. So so when we want to open another incognito window and another, we create a new context. And we can make those tests from different windows to communicate between each other. And that context object controls this session of that window. And there is page. Page is probably the most used instance inside the Playwright API because it controls current browser tab. Yes, this tab, this tab, this tab. So you can open as many tabs as you want. If you don't need different contexts, you can open multiple pages and have control over them. There is also element, and there is a frame. So if your website uses iframe, you can also have objects for those too. So there are much more APIs, but my main point is that you have control over all of those things in a browser, and you get a rich API to handle everything there, even something basic like element or something not basic like a browser itself. So let's go to bad parts of Playwright. And there are no bad parts in Playwright. Okay, but that doesn't mean that my slide is empty here. I have something. But what I want to say is that there are nothing in technology that I can call a bad part in Playwright. I would say the bad part is about how we use tools that give us that rich access and that power. Because if we have full access to all the browser things, we can easily get lost into what to do here, how to communicate, how to do. If you open Playwright website, it really seems like very simple at first, but its documentation is more like API reference and not as something that we can easily step into. So we can, it's really, at least for me maybe, it's really hard to get things going because most of the documentation is focused on advanced things like this one. So maybe not for everyone it looks advanced, but still you need experienced engineers who really know JavaScript well, who really knows object-oriented programming. And I'm saying this also because we have faced how people will write tests in protractor era, because protractor was also very powerful and people used very strange hooks to solve the problems. So I would say that the biggest problems when we introduce test automation in pure Playwright, that we will need to deal with low-level Node.js API, and probably we will need a very experienced engineer to work on this. So there is no synchronous mode. We had this in Playwright, we had this in Protractor, we have something like this in Cypress, which has this in WebDriver.io, but the but the Playwright doesn't provide us anything synchronous. So all commands require await. And if you miss one await here or there here, and you will have your test failed. The promise will go on somewhere. You will never find it. and that will make tests very flaky. So again, to work with this code, you must be a very experienced engineer. And maybe you personally are a very experienced engineer, but maybe not all on your team can write a stable, consistent code that will work with Playwright. So I'm not making a scary story here about Playwright, but still you need some advanced engineer. And if this advanced engineer knows Node.js API very good to execute, to write the code like this one, they will probably go to front end or back end, and they will become a developer. And then again, you have no engineer to create and write this code. So once the engineer becomes very experienced, it's really hard to make them write tests if they could get more money if they do back end or front end. So yeah, we need to put a wait for all the commands because no synchronous mode. And I would say that we need really good JavaScript engineer to make this code working and scalable. So this is a good quote I found recently in Twitter that Playwright is very good, but still Sergey is missing synchronous mode, and putting awaits for all the lines is the visual noise in our code. And we have lots of this visual noise that we can probably avoid. It's not something that that is really simple to explain, that the trade-offs of having complicated code to having visual noise, but on the long run, the simpler code you have, the less code you have to maintain, it's easier to update it, scale, and create a new test. So this is why Playwright is very good as a tool, as a library, but as testing engine, it have this limitation that it requires very good engineers to work with. This was a long introduction to what CodeceptJS actually is and how it can work with Playwright to take the best of Playwright and reduce the problems that I mentioned previously about Playwright API. So let's take a look at what CodeceptJS is. So CodeceptJS is a testing framework, and it's only for browser testing, and it have API for all browser engines. So it can execute tests in Playwright, in WebDriver, in Protractor. Oh, it's deprecated, we don't need it, haha. Puppeteer, Test Cafe, and a few others. But anyway, so the idea is that when you write tests in CodeceptJS, you don't specify how the test should be executed. Should be executed in a WebDriver or in Playwright or in Test Cafe. You don't specify it from start. And if you, at some point, you need to change your browser execution engine, you can easily do it. So for instance, you started to write your tests in Playwright, but your very conservative, very boring manager says, no, we need WebDriver. And you just switch one line in config and you get to Playwright. I see there is Alexander Hotemsky on the call. We worked on one project and we had to do exactly like this, that our client decided to switch to another engine after 2 weeks of test automation. And we did it pretty fast, yeah, because this client wanted to test in the Internet Explorer. I hope there will be no more reasons to switch to older technologies. But anyway, there is possibility to switch to other engines. If there will be some new engine in the future that would be much better than Playwright, let's imagine it, we could also switch to it quite easily when CodeceptJS will support it. So the main difference of CodeceptJS is that it's focused on writing tests and not on how tests will be executed. And take a look at this code. This is how tests are written in CodeceptJS. And you see, if you just compare, I could have written this with the same code, but anyway, if you compare this one with this one, okay, this is quite better highlighted than this one. I agree on this point, but this test is quite more readable, understandable, so you can show it to your manual QAs, to junior QAs, to everyone in your team, even non-technical person, and then they could at least follow the logic of this code to understand what is happening here. So it's like using BDD. That's why we call CodeceptJS BDD style testing framework, but we do it in the code, so each of this line will be executed as you the way you implement it. So less code, focus on getting things done, provide a DSL for this. This is what CodeceptJS is for. So installing CodeceptJS is quite simple. It's one command, one installer. It will create a CodeceptJS installation and Playwright instead. So after we install it, we can initialize the project. So this GIF file is okay. It shows us how that we go through the editor, through the setup wizard. We select the engine, we answer simple question, and we get our tests set up very easily. Once you prepared, select the browser engine, selected URL of website you are going to test, you set where all the tests are located, you are ready to test, and your first test should have exactly 2 lines of code. First, open a page of a website you are testing, and just pause, just relax, go sit and wait for a browser. So what this command actually does. So this is, I'm executing these 2 lines that was on the previous slide. It opens a website, which is Airbnb for this demo. And the pause commands just stopped the execution. Now I want to fill in the location. So I have an interactive console where I can type the different locators. So I figured out that location is big search query. So I can locate it by ID. And then I provide a value to it. So I just type commands into the console and I see how browser responds to my actions. And by typing these actions here and there, I get my tests written. So now I'm picking something with a calendar. I click some date in a calendar. So I'm using DevTools to figure out which element I need to fill in. Then I type into the console what should we do, and I see there is immediate result. So I won't have situations like I have assumptions that this click should work. No, I test this action in all the actions in real time, and only then I will have them in my test. So I will check all the commands. I really see that they are working. I don't take blind guesses, and I fill in these commands to have a calendar. So when this is selected, I click search, and I see the hotels are listed, and I can, for instance, check the number of hotels, name of hotels, whatever. So depending on what is the purpose of my test. So if you work in booking area, yeah, this is your regular flow of website. So if the assertion fails, you see this as an error in console as well. So all assertions in CodeceptJS starts from the word see and or don't see, and this is how they will be in your code. So when I tried all the commands and passed the booking, I can see all successful commands were saved to me. So I can just copy them into my test and replace the pause keyword with the just written test. So with one browser session, with no extra efforts, I created a test, and this test will work. And you see it's very readable. So you can follow the logic of how user interacts with the website and what they expect with this website to how it works. So this is the actual code. You see the key difference in API of Playwright and CodeceptJS is what we are interacting with. So Playwright, as you remember, provides us with a page. So you send commands to a page. But in CodeceptJS, your main actor is I, so a user. So whatever user does on the website, you list their comments and their expectations. Like I see, I click. So you're focused on user flow, on the business logic, and this gives you a very good mindset on what you do. If you can't explain your actions from the user logic, probably you are doing something wrong. Maybe you should resync what you're actually testing to keep your tests consistent and visible. If you do some very complicated check, you still need to think about user, about what user expects to have, why do they do these actions on their website, and yeah, the end result here is seeing the hotel names, and it's easy to understand this from the test. So CodeceptJS have a UI mode where you can execute tests and see this console in not in console but in a application. You can use single browser session. You can toggle headless and window mode in this UI. So it's just a very nice reporter. And let's look into what CodeceptJS provides. It provides parallel execution by workers. I must say that Playwright also provides this feature, and in some cases it's even more powerful than in CodeceptJS, but both CodeceptJS and Playwright are better in parallel execution than Cypress, just because we don't charge money for parallel executions, unlike Cypress. That's a good point. And they are really powerful and fast. So auto retries for failed steps. Again, the pretty similar behavior that Playwright have, but CodeceptJS have them as well. So if some click or C is not responding, we retry it a few more times before failing a test. CodeceptJS have page objects built in, and that means that you can easily organize your code so it will be reusable across different tests, and page objects are as simple as the test we wrote, so they can still be very readable to users. We have Allure reporting built in, and Cucumber BDD support. So if you prefer writing tests in Gherkin, you can use CodeceptJS as well and use the full power of CodeceptJS. But what if we need the best of two worlds, simplicity of CodeceptJS and power of Playwright? Not a problem at all. So we start with CodeceptJS command, then we use Playwright, we get this page object, and now we can have full control of a website and do whatever we need if from advanced Playwright API, if something is not provided by CodeceptJS by itself. So remember that you need to describe all the actions in your test as a user would do. That's why we put this line here. So if we do something with Playwright directly, we need at least to write a line to explain what we do and why. So user seeing this very complicated code would still understand what we are actually doing. And when we execute this test, we will see in a console that I use Playwright to enable dark mode. And okay, that's very understandable. So you can read reports line by line and understand what is happening there. Next feature of CodeceptJS, which is not present in Playwright, is data management. It's very useful when you have an application which have API that you can use to create objects on a server. Like to have next test, you need some data to be prepared, like a user. User should have a post and there are comments, and you need to check that comments can be edited, deleted, whatever. And you can have them created through REST API. In CodeceptJS, we can use helpers to create this API, so it would be accessible in our tests like this. So this command will create from a fake data user object, send a REST API request to server, and have a user object back. Then we do the same for post. Now we pass in some parameters. We send another REST API request to server, like create us a post. Then we send a request to create a comments. And that's then we have all the data we need. And after the test, we automatically send delete request to server to clean up this data from server. So this gives you absolute power of controlling your data in these 3 lines. So this is very cool because you don't pollute your data. And if you configure your application correctly, you can easily work only with the data you actually need. There is locator generator. I'm very bad in XPath. That's why I prefer to generate XPath for me with this code like this. And that also makes CodeceptJS simpler than all other tools. And that's it. I would probably could talk more about CodeceptJS and all its features on Playwright, but yeah, we are limited on time, so you can probably get more of it from the website. But here are a few ideas that I wanted to share. That CodeceptJS is a testing framework, and unlike all other testing frameworks, it's focused on how user works with your application, and end-to-end tests are really written in the user-centric manner. Unlike other testing tools like Cypress, WebDriver.io, CodeceptJS does not execute tests on its own. It delegates this execution to these cool, great, awesome engines. And CodeceptJS is free, open source, and is developed since 2015. It's used by small and big companies around the world. And you can use it too. So at least try, maybe you will like it. So I would say that today CodeceptJS tastes best with Playwright because yeah, I can really admire the team who work on Playwright with the amount of features they created and the speed of Playwright. And today I would recommend using CodeceptJS with a Playwright. So thanks, and here are some links. Oops, one link is missing, and not a problem. I will update my slides, and you will see them. And don't forget also to check out Testomatio, the tool I mentioned in the very beginning, the tool that can organize your automated tests in one window and see all your tests listed in an app, and you can share them across your team. So again, thanks for listening, and I would really love to answer your questions and learn from your experience.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that really well-timed and sweet presentation. As we can see by the clock, we have 12 more minutes left for this session, so really well on time. And we have our very first comment But for everyone else, please, this is your time. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box and we will address them right now, because right now it is the Q&A session where you get to ask your questions with our speaker, Michael. So do take this chance. So our first comment is by Sean, the man from Canada. Thanks, Michael. I've used CodeceptJS on 2 separate projects, one with Puppeteer and once with Playwright. As you mentioned, Playwright is incredible. CodeceptJS makes it very easy to be productive right from the start. Yeah, very good. So it
Thank
looks
you.
like we have
Thank you,
someone
Sean.
who shares that. Yes,
Thank you,
Michael,
Sean.
please.
Thanks. Thanks for using.
Right.
I remember I had a training session in one company. I came to the company and I have 2 different teams in the room, and they both used CodeceptJS, but one team were using Puppeteer and another team were using WebDriver.io. And this was quite, and they both attended the same training. So this is another interesting point of CodeceptJS, that this could be a company standard, because you need to learn only one tool and then switch between teams and not to be bound by the tool, how the tests are executed. So that was a very interesting experience to me, that you can try different engines, choose whatever you prefer better on this kind of project, and you still use CodeceptJS, which is a unification and for all the teams, for all the browser engines you have on market.
Nice. Thank you, Michael. So we do have some more comments coming in. Thekla did say, I'm getting to know about CodeceptJS today. Looks like I would love to try. Thank you, Michael. So that was her comment. And again from Sean, he says, interested in knowing your thoughts on using the page object model. And he adds on saying, when using the page object model, what are the best practices for where to put your validations, expecs, which are expecs and asserts? Would it be on the page object code itself, or would you have the page object methods we create return values for assertions in the scenarios? Take it away.
So yeah, let's. I would say that if we go to some ideal code or some ideal behavior, we will end up with a very messy code. So what I mean, if we try to do follow all these best practices, like page objects should never have assertions on the actions and return values. If we try to follow this pattern, we will probably get not the best code we have. So I would suggest to use whatever is simpler. So if it simplifies the code, if it simplifies the behavior, use this pattern. If it just limits you, probably you are on the wrong way. So in page objects, I would suggest to start using them if you really have some repeatable actions that should be used across tests. If some part of this action is assertion, okay, keep it in it, but don't restructure it because you think that it's wrong. Make your page objects effective, simple, and make them work. Split them if you don't think that they're effective. Refactor, but whatever you feel like better code, just have it.
All right. Thank you, Michael. So that was your answer to Sean's question. Sean, we hope you got a satisfactory answer. Feel free to add in another question if no one else has any other questions. While we wait for maybe one more question, Michael,
Sean,
is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I would say it's something to my previous answer. So if there are no strict limitations to me, like having assertions in page objects or not, if because this strict policy really breaks the usage of page objects. So don't make things strict on this part.
Nice. Well said, Michael. We have another question. Thank you to EDU. So EDU asked, having 2 nested iframes and very frequent stale elements exceptions due to one of the iframes being recreated, is it possible to enable auto retries for groups of instructions? For example, navigating to the top content waiting and switching for each iframe, and then waiting for the desired element?
That's a really good question. Probably we don't have this thing yet. We have some probably that's what we should work on, because I already saw this pattern in previously in other companies that are using CodeceptJS. They implemented some their own baked solution, but it's definitely what I really want to hear from today's meetups, that hey, you don't have something in CodeceptJS. You need to implement this. And to be honest, this is a really interesting problem, and we need to have something like something to solve this. What we have currently as an alternative is a plugin which is called try2. So you can probably use it to do something like this. So try to execute the code, and if the code fails, it just returns you false. So you can probably execute this few times until this result is true, and you are passing the block into this try2 code, and you can like do some, I don't know, you will do it 3 times or 4 times until the failure, and you can like while result is until result is false or the result is true, we try to perform this action. So probably as a workaround you can use try2 for now, but definitely this should be on the level of retries. Anyway, I think we've you can do this in CodeceptJS right now.
All right, very nice, Michael. And thank you to everyone here for asking your questions. It's very good to have you interact with our speaker live while he's with us so that you can get your answers and know how to do better in quality assurance. All right, so it is 5 minutes left of the session. We are right on time, which is very good. So before we end the session, where maybe Michael can give us some last words of advice at the very end of the session, but before Michael gives his last words of advice, just a quick announcement to everyone. Just quickly, we want to, on behalf of QA Tech Talks, we want to thank Michael and Testomatio, our community partner. Testomatio, the next generation test management system for modern development teams, which is free forever for small teams. And Michael here is actually the Chief Technical Officer of Testomat.io. So it is a great pleasure to have him and his team be our community partner. Moving forward with our other announcements, as you can see in the chat right now, you can follow us on these links. We have a YouTube channel where we will post our recordings of sessions like tonight. So if you enjoyed this session and want to share with your friends, or if you know someone who missed this session, worry not, we've recorded the session and we will upload to our YouTube channel very soon. You can also follow our Instagram for our updates, our LinkedIn page, we will post up to date with all our events, future events, conferences, and maybe you might see Michael again in the future, who knows, right? And you can also join our Telegram link. And last but not least, our upcoming event, which is the QA Detective Conference, which is happening on November 20 and 21st. So if you want to join and be part of the event where you learn how to be a detective when it comes to quality assurance, do join that for that event. Now, without further ado, let me pass back the floor to Michael for him to give his last words of advice or anything else he wants to say. Take it away, Michael.
Yeah, let's get back to CodeceptJS. And you see, CodeceptJS started when there was no things like Playwright or Cypress. There was nothing, just WebDriver and Protractor market. But I really thought that we will have
Oh, Michael, you seem to be disconnected.
that will be great.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm back. So what I actually wanted to say is that nowadays JavaScript ecosystem is very powerful, and it's expanding faster than Java. So all the modern new tools like Playwright, Cypress are built in JavaScript. So it's very good opportunity to use the most modern technology you have. And I think this is very cool that we live in this era where end-to-end testing is not as painful as it used to be, and that we can actually see the result of a progress of this browser testing evolution we have. And I think that tools like CodeceptJS, Playwright, Testomatio gives the best experience to have all this to have this progress and use it integrated into your business.
All right, nice. Thank you so much, Michael, for your last words of advice. And it is 1 minute left to our session ending. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, so much for joining us for tonight's session. It has been wonderful. Do check out our YouTube for this recording very soon, and keep enjoying us for our other links to stay up to date and stay tuned to our future events. All right, and that concludes tonight's session. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you, Michael, again for being our speaker tonight.
Thank you for inviting.
Very good. And this marks the end of the session. And now it's now time to fit farewell. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Goodbye.